you all for attending this gubernatorial forum. It's being sponsored by the Democratic Party of Sierra County and supported by KRWG Public Radio in Las Cruces. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then the New Mexico.
Okay. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Let me begin by introducing our officers from Sierra County Democratic Party, all of whom are here tonight. Sid Bryan, Chair, if you could just. Leslie Civic, right there, who's Secretary. Felipe Hernandez, I guess he's not here, and I'm Barbara Perlman, Vice Chair. Sierra County Democratic Party meets every third Wednesday of the month at 5:30 p.m., seized property 108 North Main Street in Truth or Consequences. Our next meeting will be February 21st, and it is also the date of our pre-primary county convention in preparation for the state's primary convention held in March. If you would like to be included on our listserv to be notified of meetings, meet and greets, and other Sierra County Democratic activities like get out the vote, voter registration, training, etc., please sign up at the table with your phone number or email. Also, there is a donations jar which will help defray the costs of this event. Importantly, Daniel Perry is here to register anyone who is not currently registered to vote at the table over there. The successful Indivisibles organization of the Women's March last month, along with women's groups across the country, have pledged their efforts to register over 1 million new women voters. I would like to welcome our honored guests, Jeff Apodaca, Joseph Cervantes, Peter DeBenedittis, and unfortunately, Michelle Lujan Grisham, who wanted to be here and was even working on being here through video feed, cannot join us tonight because she's doing her job for us on the floor of Congress. I would like now to introduce other candidates who are in the audience. And if you could just stand up, Sandy Jones, who's chairman of the PRC. Roscoe Woods, who's running for in the 7th for District Court Judge in the 7th Judicial District. Brian Colon, State Auditor. Billy Garrett, Lieutenant Governor. And Steve Fishman, also PRC. There will be a meet and greet after tonight's event so that you can talk to all the candidates personally. Before I introduce Fred Martino, tonight's moderator, I would be amiss if I did not recognize Diane Tittle, whose persistent efforts made this unique event possible. To say that it required astute coordination with candidates, KRWG, sound, video, and at the last minute attempting a feed for Congresswoman Grisham is an understatement. Please let's give her an applause. Fred Martino is Director of Content at KRWG, leading the efforts on radio and television at krwg.org. Fred anchors the region's only television news magazine, Newsmakers, which airs Thursday at 7 p.m., Saturday at 5 p.m., Sunday at 11 p.m. on KRWG-TV. Fred's work at KRWG began with a new commitment to digital media. The move quickly paid dividends, as KRWG.org was named the best online news state in the state by the New Mexico Associated Press in 2008, receiving several Best Website Awards from the New Mexico Broadcasters Association. Fred has led efforts to bring diversity to the airwaves and to the digital audience at KRWG. Fronteras, A Changing America, and radio and television broadcasts, focusing on our vibrant border communities and the diversity of southern New Mexico. This is the second time we have been fortunate in welcoming Fred Martina to our local Sierra County stage. His able and insightful role as moderator of the CD2 candidates on November 16th of last year was exceptional, and we'd like to thank you all for attending. Thank you very much. Fred.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy getting out to do these events, and in fact, we're going to be having a coffee visit in TRC coming up pretty soon. Maybe my mic isn't working. It is on. It looks like it's on. There we go. I got to be right up on it, I guess. Glad I'm not going to be talking too much tonight. You're going to be talking. So you're going to be asking questions coming up, and that's one of the things I love about this format, is that I'll only ask a question at the beginning and at the end, and you'll be asking all of the other questions. So we're going to get to that shortly, but we do have opening and closing statements tonight as well. And I want to thank the candidates who are here tonight, because to me, this is an integral part of public service, to get out into the community and to answer questions. We try to do these forums in our TV studio. We do them with call-in shows. And you will not be surprised to know that there are some folks who, when they're running for office or when they are in office, are not willing to engage in this kind of forum where anyone can come and anyone could ask any question that they want, provided that it is for all of the candidates. So that is very admirable, and I thank them for doing that, running for governor. Thank you to all of you. Thank you. Thank you. For our opening statements, they have 2 minutes, and of course we had a drawing backstage for the order, and it just so happens to be left to right. As it worked out, we'll start with Jeff Apodaca, and you will get a 30-second warning when we get to 1:30.
Evening. Well, I guess we can't stand up because I guess the mics don't stand up. Anyway, evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Apodaca. It's great to be in Sierra County. It's great to be in TRC, where I grew up to water ski and where I learned how to water ski and slalom. I'm originally from Las Cruces, New Mexico, and you might recognize the name. Jerry Apodaca was my father, the former governor. But I'm not running for governor because my dad was governor. And I'm not running for governor because it's my turn, because I was literally told to wait my turn. I'm running for governor because guess whose turn it is? It's your turn. It's New Mexico's turn. It's our children's turn. I am tired of being at the bottom of every list. I'm tired of being 50th. And that's why we're running. My 2 children are 9 years of age. And one of them this summer told me, "Daddy, when you're governor, can you do me one favor?" And I'm thinking, as a 3rd grader, no more homework, more artwork, more computer time. He said, "Daddy, when you're governor, can you have my friends stop leaving the state of New Mexico?" My 9-year-olds know we've lost 100,000 jobs. My 9-year-olds know we've lost 57,000 New Mexicans for other opportunities. But guess what else my 9-year-olds know? My 9-year-olds know what we can do. We can take $23 billion that we invest into Wall Street, that we invest into Colorado, that we invest into Texas, and we can invest it right back here in New Mexico. And that's what our plan is. And tonight we will talk about how we can create 225,000 new jobs when my opponents are telling me it's not credible. Tonight we'll talk about how we can create small business, how we can expand small business, expand and invest in education, and improve our communities and improve our rural areas. Folks, that's what it's about. It's time for big ideas. It's time we start investing into yourselves and into our future and into our kids. So I want to thank you so much tonight for having me here, and I look forward to answering all your questions, and thank you again for having me this evening.
And now we will hear from Joe Cervantes, and I will ask anyone who has a cell phone to please silence the cell phone. Thank you.
It's great to be with you tonight from Santa Fe. I've come down, and we're in the middle of our legislative session. As many of you know, I serve in the Senate, and Jennifer and I came down after a long day in Santa Fe to be with you tonight because we made a commitment to be here, and I'm pleased to honor that commitment. You're here tonight, I think, because you see and believe that New Mexico has greater opportunities than we're realizing. I believe that. And that's why I'm running for governor. I'm Joe Cervantes, and I've served in the New Mexico House and the Senate, and I've learned a few things. Among the things that I've learned there is what it's going to take from the next governor to really move New Mexico from the bottom, where it is now, and what we all find so unacceptable. And so tonight I want to talk to you about three things. And the questions that we'll talk about and the answers I'll give will all focus around those same three things. First, the reason that I'm running for governor, the reason I hope you'll support me for governor is because, frankly, there are no quick fixes. It took a long time for New Mexico to get into this trouble. It's going to take a long time and a lot of hard work to get out. It's going to take all of the 4 years and rolling up your sleeves. And I'll tell you that as a farmer from Doña Ana County, your neighbor down south, I'm accustomed to hard work. I love hard work. I believe in hard work. And I don't believe in quick fixes. And I don't believe in easy solutions. I hope tonight we'll talk a little bit about what are being suggested as easy fixes. And I hope by the end of the evening you'll know that's not where New Mexico's future lies. The second thing I'll talk to you tonight is about experience and the importance of experience. I'll tell you we've had 8 years of this administration, a governor who ran as an outsider with no political experience. She was proud of it. We have a president of the United States who ran as an outsider who was proud of that with no experience. And we see how those things are working out. Tonight you'll learn that I have the unique experience to be your next governor. And the last thing you'll learn about me tonight is courage. The next governor is going to have courage. There's going to be a lot of hard decisions. This is not a position for somebody who's made a career out of politics, who relies upon politics as a career or as a profession, somebody who needs politics to have a job. I'm a businessman. I'm a farmer. I'm an attorney. I'm not doing this for a career. I'm not doing this to move up the ladder, and that's been New Mexico's problems. We've had governors who are seeing this as a stepping stone to something else. That takes away the courage. I'm going to show you tonight that based on my record in the legislature, I've been courageous. I've passed the bills. I've done the legislation. I've done the hard work to show you that courage, the kind of governor that I'll be. And I look forward to all of your questions here tonight.
And now we will hear from Peter DeBenedittis.
Thank you. My name is Peter DeBenedittis. I am the Progressive Democratic candidate running for governor. Now, what makes me a progressive? I do not take any corporate money, so I do not owe any favors. What a concept. Because of that, I'm able to endorse a platform that includes $15 an hour living wages, early childhood education, creating a publicly owned state bank, and legalizing cannabis in our state. More importantly, I'm the only candidate running who wants to have single-payer health care through the New Mexico Health Security Campaign. I'm the only thank you. I'm the only candidate running who is standing up for 100% renewable energy, and I'm the only candidate running who wants to ban fracking. I can do that because I don't have to pay off corporations. Now, in the last debate in Taos, I created a stink because I was talking about how much money candidates had taken from different corporations. And the congresswoman said, hey, that's not fair. You have never held office. You do not understand what it's like to have relationships with businesses that you regulate. And I thought that was really interesting that the word relationship was used, because I've never been in a relationship where hundreds of thousands of dollars have changed hands. Okay, I've seen business deals where that's happened, but never a relationship. Now, this is not to blame the politicians, because a fish is not aware that it's swimming in water, but politicians are not aware they're swimming in money. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to do accountability. Tonight, you're going to hear me state my position, talk about the voting record and position of the other candidates, and then list how much money has come from corporations affected by those regulations. You have a choice. Same old big money politics or putting people first. And I'm asking you to make that choice tonight. I'm Peter D.
Thank you very much for the opening statements. We will have a chance for 2-minute closing statements at the end of our program. Right now, we welcome those of you who want to ask a question to begin to form a line on the left. And the first person in line can actually come up to the mic while they are answering my question, because I have one question before we get to your questions. And we're going to actually start, it'll be in the same order. We're going to start with Jeff Apodaca, and we're going to go left to right, and we will begin to alternate with our audience questions. Jeff, tell me the one most important thing that you will do to boost New Mexico's economy, and why is this one thing your top priority?
There's a lot of things we need to do in the state. But Fred, the number one thing we need to do is invest back into New Mexico. We invest all our resources outside our state. We do nothing to invest back into New Mexico. So our jobs plan is to create 225,000 new jobs, and that's going to start by investing into small business. In fact, big business gets so many breaks, but we sit in a room today with small business, and small business is 95% of our economy. And by investing into our strengths, investing into our schools, investing into our universities, we will create 225,000 new jobs. Now, folks, people aren't moving to Phoenix, Arizona because they like the sun. They move there because they're investing into their universities, they're investing into small business, they're investing and growing their economies. There's many things, many big things we have to do in New Mexico. But the first thing we have to do is create jobs to turn New Mexico around, and that's our first priority.
Joe, number one priority.
I think the issue is really not jobs, but opportunities. The fact is that people can get jobs, but they need to know that they can grow in those jobs, that they can advance in those jobs, they can get better wages and see a brighter future for themselves. And so jobs is just not enough. We need to have people be able to have confidence and optimism in our state. There has to be a short-term solution and a long-term solution. The short-term solution is there's $1 billion in capital outlay funding that's been appropriated by our state that's not being put to work. That's because of inefficiency and very candidly because this administration doesn't know how to work with the legislature and with their colleagues and frankly with state government. That's the short term. The short term is dealing with our people that are in college today who are going to be graduating next year, making sure in high school that they're out with career alternatives, technical alternatives, that they don't have to necessarily pursue a college track, but if they pursue a college track, that there are going to be jobs waiting for them here in New Mexico. The long-term solution is always education. We need to be educating our children from grade school through high school and even before that to make sure that our future in New Mexico is a bright one in the 15 and 20 years ahead. But for now, jobs tomorrow, getting rid of the waste and fraud in government, putting people to work with good opportunities.
Okay. Peter, number one.
So there's actually 3 things we need to do in the economy. We need to teach entrepreneurship so we can actually have businesses get started by local folks. We need to have living wages of at least $15 an hour, and we need to create a publicly owned state bank. Let me talk about living wages. 70% of the economy is driven by consumer spending. And right now, we can't do it quickly, but we've got to get to 15 slowly because we can't hurt the businesses that exist. But we're going to double the amount of money in circulation. And that means doubling or tripling people going out to dinner, buying new clothes, getting new tires. And that's how we grow the economy from the bottom up. What you're going to hear from the other candidates is just same old trickle down. And personally, I'm tired of being trickled on. I haven't seen those jobs from all these promises. I haven't seen all these great things going on. We start by growing the economy by watering its roots.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now have the first audience member come forward. Our Q&A session is going to be about 50 minutes in length, and after your question, the answers begin to your question, we'll ask you to sit down and allow the next person to get up. I know that will feel rude, but we want to keep it moving so that we have a constant stream of questions with such a limited amount of time. We're going to rotate, and each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. So audience members are encouraged to keep their questions short and, of course, their tone and language very civil. The questions are for all of the candidates, so please do not address any one candidate. The order will be rotating, and it is a question about an issue, not about an individual. Personal attacks and insults won't be tolerated, and of course the candidates are instructed not to respond to any of those. And we will get started now, and we'll ask you to say your name and where you're from.
James Wilson from TRC. And I have several questions, actually. Have any of you ever read the Constitution of the United States, the organic Constitution of 1879 or 1789?
Okay, so thank you for that question, James, and we'll allow the next person to come forward, and we will begin with Joe Cervantes about the Constitution and how you, if you've read it, and how you see the importance of that.
But I have another question that's relevant and germane to the first one.
Okay, well...
Do you know the difference between the Act of 1871 that overthrew the Republic and established the United States of America Incorporated? And
James,
if you do know anything about it, what are you going to do to change it?
James,
to reestablish
James,
the Republic?
Thank you very much.
That's all.
I will ask Joe to begin on the Constitution and how you, in reading that, if you've read that, was the question, and then I guess anything else you'd like to say in 60 seconds about the Constitution.
Well, you're bringing up some bad memories. I'm an attorney for 30 years, so I had to read the Constitution a lot in law school, but of course I was fortunate to be a public student in Las Cruces schools and read the Constitution many times and had a terrific education there too. So thank you to all the educators here tonight. So yes, I've read the Constitution many times. I don't know the answers to the specifics of the organic Constitution. I think one of the questions was about a republic. But let me, if I can, transition a little bit. One of the important things is New Mexico has been operating a constitution for over 100 years. We need to be looking at our constitution, and I've been introducing legislation for years to do what is called a Constitutional Review Commission. We're still operating with the idea that we only meet 30 days, 1 year, 60 days for the governor controls things. Our constitution is so antiquated, and our way of doing government is out of date. The notion that we go to Santa Fe in January because that's when farmers were not supposed to have anything to do. We're working off a 100-year-old state constitution. We need to be looking at that front to bottom, and we need to be looking at best practices from other states. I've introduced legislation to do that for years, and one of the first things I'll do as governor will be to look at other states, the way they do things in their state constitution, and looking at New Mexico's needed changes in our own 100-year-old document.
Okay. Peter.
Thank you for your question, James. I'm going to address the second part of it, and I'm not going to directly talk about the corporatizing of America. I'm going to talk about the monetary system being corporatized. And right now we have a Federal Reserve, which is not publicly owned. It's owned by 8 private families. They just make money out of thin air. We spend 6.5% of our federal budget paying off debt that was just created out of thin air. And this is why we keep getting more and more 1% and less money going to the people of America. I'm proposing that we have a publicly owned state bank in New Mexico. We take the $4 billion in our operating fund, we deposit it in ourselves. We now can loan up to 90% of that, but I don't want to leverage us with debt. But let's say we loan $1 billion out. Now we've got $1 billion circulating in our economy. We've got more jobs being created. All the interest is paid back to us instead of exported out of state to the big banks. Imagine all these big road projects where we collect all the interest. This is how we're going to break the grip of corporatization. This is why we're going to break the grip of us getting poorer and poorer.
Okay.
Well, in college, I studied media, but my minor was political science, and I was kind of a history buff, so it's been a long time since I've read the Constitution. But one thing I took about Constitution study in college is it's about the United States of America. The states are the ones that are supposed to run everything. The states are the ones that are supposed to regulate, not our federal government. So as your governor, I can promise you this. We will defend New Mexico's rights, and we will focus on New Mexico's needs and New Mexico's Constitution. And there's probably one thing I do agree with. It is crazy that we try and govern our state with 30-day and 60-day sessions. In fact, we have talked about for years that we should be at 120 to 180-day sessions and working almost full year. That's why things aren't getting done. So I do agree with Joseph that we are working with an antiquated 100-year-old constitution that we have to take a look at. But as your governor, I will defend New Mexico states with our state and our federal constitution.
Okay. Thank you. Our next question, I'll ask you to say your name and where you're from.
I'm Tony Davis from Lincoln County. My question has to do with public lands. Representative Steve Pierce wanted to shrink the Organ Mountain Desert Peaks National Monument by 88%. Fortunately, Interior Secretary Zinke listened apparently to the people of Las Cruces in southern New Mexico and demurred. Public lands have an enormous economic benefit for adjacent communities and New Mexico as a whole. My questions are, how do you feel about transfer of federal lands to the state? How will you work with the state land office on such matters? And should the state replace PILT money, that's payment in lieu of taxes, to counties that are lost in such transfers?
Okay. Peter, we'll begin with you.
That's a lot for 60 seconds. So here's the deal. In our country, we've forgotten the meaning of the word public. Public means public. We've been seeing a privatization move in our whole country going on for years now, where they're taking utilities and roads and now public monuments and parks and selling them off to the highest bidder. And we're getting a little bit up front, and because we keep playing the poverty card in New Mexico, but we sell our future and we sell our ability to have public lands. And of course, public lands cannot be measured just in dollars and cents. You know, people who have access to recreational lands are healthier, they're happier. We have the most beautiful state there is when you look at what we can do in tourism and the film industry. So we need to protect our public lands at all costs. And yes, we need to work with counties to make sure that revenue streams are opened up and we're not just dependent on sucking off the teat of oil and gas because that'll be our only resources. And that's what we need to do, is to promote ecotourism, to promote public recreation. That will make us healthy, happy, and wealthy.
Okay. Jeff.
Thanks, Tony, for the question. And I think we all agree. Public lands, we have majority federal and state lands in our state, and we have to protect them. When I was a kid growing up in Las Cruces, and then when we moved to Santa Fe, we used to go fishing at public lands. We used to go camping. Areas where you can't do it today because we've privatized too much. So as governor, I will protect the public lands. And in 60 seconds, we also have to use those as opportunities. The number one opportunity with our public lands, renewable energies. We can literally invest in renewable energies and create thousands and thousands of jobs and then power New Mexico with clean renewable energies. And also, guess what? Power California, Nevada, Arizona. We can produce it today at 4 cents a kilowatt, and we can sell it to other states at 11 to 18 cents a kilowatt, generating new revenue streams for our state. And ecotourism is 100%. Tourism is about 12% of our economy. Our neighbors are destroying us and killing us in ecotourism, and all we have to do is use our public strengths for ecotourism and create jobs and opportunities for New Mexicans. And that's what we'll do with those. Thank you.
Joe.
In the New Mexico Senate, the senators elect their leadership, and I serve in the leadership. The position I have as chairman, my greatest privilege really in my second term in the Senate, is to chair the Conservation Committee. This is the committee that's in charge of our natural resources, our land, our water, our air, our renewable energy. My colleagues have asked me to chair that committee and be responsible for that committee because they know my commitment and of my record. When you talked about Secretary Zinke, and not too long ago, Billy Garrett's here. Billy will tell you the story. I sat across the table from Secretary Zinke, closer than I am to Jeff right now, and told him that he needed to protect our Oregon mountains and desert peaks. We fought there with hundreds of people in Doñana County that night, the night before, and I stood across from him, and I used his own Republican logic against him. Republicans like to talk about local control, local government. I said, why are you not respecting local control and local government? We want these mountains protected. We want these lands protected. I will have a record among all the candidates to show that I've consistently voted against any effort to privatize our public lands. And I understand the last question and the point was payment in lieu of taxes. I hope we'll get a chance to talk about that more because, frankly, some of the proposals I told you are quick fixes that won't work. You can't use public lands and tax them for other purposes than the Constitution allows.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, and if you could say your name and where you're from.
My name is Linda Harris, and I'm from Las Cruces. And I just recently was in Colorado Springs, and I read in their paper that their city is #1 in the nation in attracting millennials. So I looked up New Mexico's statistics, and it's something like 46th. It's 50th in quality of life. Part of that is they don't have health care. So my question specifically is about millennials. What kind of jobs, what kind of quality of life are you planning, are in your plans for the economy? I mean, they're a huge part. 3 of my grandchildren are millennials, and one of them just moved to Colorado Springs. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Jeff first.
Linda, you're correct. I had dinner this summer with 6 couples. 12 children were represented, mine being the youngest at 9, to college. Not one of those families thought their kids would stay in New Mexico. Now, folks, for 50, 60 years, we've started aerospace, nuclear, nanotechnology, biotechnology, photonics, multiple cybersecurity industries. And they all leave. And our kids and our college graduates leave with those startups, leave with those jobs. And why do they leave? Because we don't invest in infrastructure. We don't invest in schools. We don't invest in job training. We don't invest into New Mexico industries. And then we sit on $23 billion and invest it into those industries in Texas, California, Oklahoma. It's time we start investing into our kids, into ourselves, and keep them here in New Mexico. And you are correct. Those millennials will stay here. They want to stay here. But they're leaving because we have created no opportunities in the state of New Mexico. And that's what we're going to do when I'm your governor. New direction, new ideas. Folks, it's time we turn New Mexico around.
I'm real fortunate to be here tonight with my wife Jennifer, who's up front, and with her parents, my in-laws, grandparents. Jennifer and I have, and my brother and sister-in-law, who have daughters as well too. Jennifer and I have 3 daughters who are between the age of 24 and 18 years old. They're all in college. They love New Mexico. We grew up in southern New Mexico in Doña Ana County on our farm. They want to stay here. They want to live here. They want to raise their families here. And as grandparents, we like that idea a whole lot. But they need to have those opportunities. And the opportunities for people that are in college are going to mean the jobs, but more important, the opportunity for advancement. And let me add a few more things to the mix in the discussion, because it's more than just college education and jobs and opportunities. It means a safe community. We need to be able to get our hands around crime. My daughters have been broken into repeatedly. I've been broken into repeatedly in Albuquerque. You got to feel safe with your families first. And last, of course, is the issue that brings us all here tonight, which is a hope and an optimism for their state in education. Our daughters want to be able to put their kids through the same public education that I went through, my brother went through, and frankly, they went through. They received an incredible education in Las Cruces Public Schools. Incredible. They've had every opportunity. But they need to know that the future of public education in New Mexico is going to give their children that same opportunity. And Jennifer and I wouldn't want anything less for our grandchildren.
Let's put that question in context. We didn't get to be last by accident. These were decisions made by politicians over years and years who were giving you the same old lines and taking the same old corporate money. That needs to change. Now, I'm advocating entrepreneurship. We start teaching kids how banking works, how money works, how to start a business through mentorship programs. We then create a publicly owned state bank, and we start to look at some of these startups. We can be Sandia Valley instead of Silicon Valley by funding those kinds of startups. Yes, some of them will fail, but many of them will succeed and create new jobs. Finally, we need to have the businesses that really matter. Legalizing cannabis is going to be 16,000 new jobs instantly. Legalizing hemp is going to be a lot of production across our state. Finally, you support that with single-payer health care for all New Mexicans. So the quality of life issues change. We change the entire culture by entrepreneurship, loans through a state bank, and then having more friendly health care and cannabis laws.
Thank you. Our next question, if you could say your name and where you're from.
Good evening. My name is Terry Dahlman, and I am from Las Cruces. I currently serve my community as a school board member. And my question is, of course, about education. I want to know how each one of you gentlemen feel about over-testing our children And also, real quickly, what you will plan on doing as soon as you get elected to alleviate this problem. And then secondly, real quickly, where you stand on abortion.
Okay, let's start with Joe.
Oh, you got a little bit of difference in the two topics there, but listen, Terry, thank you again for your service on the school board, and again, our daughters have been through your school district, and we appreciate that service. Listen, I want you all to know here that I voted against Secretary Hannah Scandera, the governor's nominee for secretary. And so while, again, a lot of people running for governor will tell you what they will do or what they won't do, I can show you what I've done and not done. I fought the fight against this administration, and frankly, the fight was whether she was minimally qualified. When I'm your governor, I'm not going to appoint a Secretary of Education where we'll have to debate whether she's minimally qualified or not. She will be somebody who we will all look up to with esteem and respect, and that's how you begin reforming public education, is to rebuild the relationship between teachers, administrators, parents, and students. And right now it's fractured. Right now, we have this administration putting on the burden on teachers and the blame, grading schools, grading students, and park testing. I'm going to eliminate the park testing. Terry, you and I had our discussion about that. You know that backstory, and I'd love to talk to people about it later. But the most important thing I'll do is appoint a Secretary of Education who respects teachers, who knows the importance of the classroom, and knows that the secret to our education is a relationship between parents, teachers, and students, one of respect, and will bring teachers back to New Mexico and make them proud of being teachers. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry, there were two questions. Do I get any more time for that one? Real quickly. The most difficult choice of a woman's life, I think it belongs to the woman and her choice and her own conscience.
Peter.
So let me start off by saying I don't want government in our bedrooms, and I don't want government in women's bodies. That's their choice. I'm advocating that every department secretary be a state employee already in that department. This way we're not paying off any favors. These are people who know what they're doing and are well liked, with the exception of education. That must be a teacher. I mean, what a concept, having a teacher run the show. Yeah. And as far as your testing goes, we've so missed what education is about: imagination, creativity, art, music. The research shows that students who have those do much better. We need to get rid of the park testing. I'm a research geek. I've got a PhD, okay, and so research matters. Lobbyists go to the back of the room. Research, come forward, okay? And the data shows that it's arbitrary and fluctuates from year to year. So it's like rolling dice on whether or not teachers and students are being rewarded. And that, of course, is discriminatory against low income, and a lot of racial discrimination is reflected in those tests. We need to get rid of that.
Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Well, on the second part, I think we all agree it's a woman's choice. It's a personal, faithful decision, and as your governor, I'll protect that. But education, folks, I have twin boys that are 9. And next to my wife and I, the two most important people in those kids' lives are our educators. It's that simple. And in fact, what we've done is we've tried to incorporate, and we literally have pushed millions and millions of dollars outside our state into organizations like PARC, into evaluating our teachers on students that they don't even see. Now, I haven't met a teacher, I haven't met a principal, I haven't met an administrator that doesn't want to be evaluated. But what we need to do is we need to start moving from PED top down, back from the community up. And our educational plan, which we launched 2 weeks ago, it's on our website, apo18.com, you can see it. It's time we start paying our educators $43,000, $47,000 to $55,000 a year. It's time we start empowering our educators from the classroom up. And our educational plan is 0 to 20. And I will tell you right now, for the last 16 years, we've had a governor who's never been a parent. And I can tell you right now, being a parent is the most important thing in the world, and education gets our kids out of poverty, gives them opportunities. So as your governor, I will appoint Secretary of Education who has been an educator. We will stop testing all our children and start teaching our children and creating pathways and opportunities for them across many platforms that you can see on our website.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And our next question your name and where you're from.
My name is Ron Fenn, and I'm from Truth or Consequences. My question is this: as a governor, will you support and encourage the Attorney General's office to investigate and, if warranted, prosecute municipalities for violations of anti-donation provisions of the New Mexico Constitution? This specifically relates to forced donations from the public to corporations and agencies such as Spaceport America. Thank you.
Okay, let's begin with Peter on that one.
Thank you. So my whole campaign is built on accountability. And so absolutely, yes, we want accountability. We need to be legal, of course, which is why the Attorney General is a good place to put those kinds of decisions so we can actually be fair about it. But yes, we want to hold folks accountability. I'm tired of seeing a lot of money being exported out of our state, a lot of money being paid to corporations that's unnecessary. So yes, I support that fully.
Okay, Jeff.
I would agree. Government needs to be accountable across the board, and as your governor, I will follow the laws. I will make sure the Attorney General is following our Constitution, and I will push the legislators to create laws to make sure that we don't do any of those type of activities in our state. It's about, government working for the people. It's about government working for New Mexicans. It's about creating opportunities, and I will make sure the Attorney General is following all the constitutions and puts legislators to laws that are being broken or that we need to create.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The governor doesn't get to tell the Attorney General what to do. They're independent executive branch officers, elected officials. It just doesn't work that way. The fact of the matter is, though, that we have a broken system, and as a legislator, I've tackled corruption and fraud. I hope you'll go on my website and listen to the story of Frances Williams. Frances Williams was a housing authority member. She knew fraud and corruption was going on in the millions of dollars. She went to the governor about it and complained. The governor at the time did nothing. She went to the lieutenant governor at the time. The lieutenant governor, she did nothing. She went to the Attorney General. The Attorney General did nothing. You'll see her story on our webpage. It's a great, compelling story. I did something. I had 2 hearings. I passed the Whistleblower Protection Act that allows people to come forward with knowledge of waste and fraud and not be prosecuted for that, not be sued for that, and to encourage them to do so. And I passed the Fraud Against Taxpayers Act, a bill that brought back tens of millions of dollars that was paid to Wall Street outsiders in fees in the last administration. I fought the hard fights. I'm a courageous fighter when I see fraud and corruption. The fact of the matter is the anti-donation clause, which was the question, is used selectively. The fact of the matter is that people that are connected and wired in are able to get financial benefits from the state, whereas others who don't have those knowledge, information, and contacts are told the state can't help you because of the anti-donation clause. We need to get to a fairness in business to everyone.
I'm Chitty Foles from Ruidoso, Lincoln County. And I would like to know a little bit more in detail from each of you about how you feel about bringing hemp as an industry into our state, and also the legalization of marijuana, and how you would regulate and tax such an economy.
Okay, thank you. And we'll begin with Jeff on this one. Both 2 separate issues, hemp and cannabis.
And I'll try and do it as quick as possible, but we were the first campaign to basically say we would legalize hemp, legalize cannabis for recreation, and expand our medical. Now, I don't know if you know this, but in 1978, New Mexico was actually the first state that had medical marijuana as law. Guess what governor signed that into law? My father, Jerry Apodaca. Never knowing 2 years later, his own son, Jeff Apodaca, would be stricken with cancer and use medical marijuana to get through chemotherapy for 2 years. I took shots and pills for 6 to 8 months and nothing worked. I lost 38 pounds, lost all my hair. Now I saw firsthand how medical marijuana can help us. Now we've learned from Colorado. We've learned from the good and the bad. We will regulate it. But it's an opportunity with hemp, medical, and recreational, and we can regulate it the right way, and we can't overtax it, because if you overtax it, you can create a black market. And then we sit literally 45 minutes away from one of the top agricultural research institutions in the country that we can literally make it better for the world. So I believe in that, and when you start looking at investing into that, you're talking 32,000 new jobs and over $200 million in tax revenue. Again, Big ideas, looking for opportunities, investing in our opportunities and our strengths. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joe.
I told you earlier in the night that the reason I'm running for governor is because I think you need to hear it straight, and people need to know the facts, and I need to be straight with you. Look, the fact of the matter is this. We passed legislation to allow for hemp production in New Mexico. The governor vetoed it this last session. As a lawyer, me and other senators sued her in court, and we won. And now that case is before the Supreme Court, and so hemp will be legalized. But let's remember, I told you earlier, it's not about quick fixes. It's not about easy solutions. If you took all of the hemp that's being produced in all 17 states in the United States right now, and you moved it all to New Mexico tomorrow, every one of those 17 states, all of those acres, and you started growing all of that hemp in New Mexico, it would increase our farmland acreage in our state by, get this, 0.2%. Now, that's not to belittle the importance and the opportunity that may present in the future, but the fact of the matter is that is not the way that we're going to grow as a state. That's not the way we're going to create jobs tomorrow. That's not a true economy for New Mexico that we need today and now. It is the future. It's a long-term plan, but if you're going to increase our farmland, existing farmland production by 0.2%, if you assumed all of the hemp in the entire United States came to New Mexico tomorrow, that's a false promise. And again, it's one of these quick fix solutions that we're hearing a lot on this campaign. Do the math.
Quickly, cannabis. Quickly.
Cannabis, I don't support legalization until we can assure that there are protections in the same way we have with alcohol, with the people that serve it, the locations. We need to have testing in place. We don't have the technology to test on roadways and streets. I've lost too many friends to DWI. I prosecuted DWI cases. We need to have safe streets and safe workplaces.
Okay. Peter.
Let's look at the research, because I'm a research geek, okay? States that have legalized cannabis do not have any more per capita car accidents, car crashes than states that have not legalized cannabis. States that have legalized cannabis have seen a 25% reduction in opioid prescription deaths. States that have legalized cannabis have not seen an increase in youth usage, and in fact, it's gone down in Colorado.
Exactly.
So the research is there. I don't know why the moral issue of, oh, I don't want to do this, okay? So you're not going to see that. I briefly want to talk about, because I'm for legalizing all three of them, there's a very detailed plan on the issues page of my website and how we can do that instantly in 2009. Check that out. But I want to talk about having the state bank take commercial cannabis deposits. So we become the cannabis banking capital of the Southwest, and money comes into us. Do you guys know that when I proposed that last week nationally on the Young Turks, when I was interviewed, the treasurer of California said, we need a state bank that takes cannabis money, and he's running for governor to do that in California. And we got to race them to decide if we're going to be last to the table again, or if you're going to elect me so we can be first.
Okay. Come on forward.
I'm Charmaine O'Rourke from Ruidoso, Lincoln County. Simple question, would you consider a higher minimum wage for New Mexico than the federal one? How else would you improve the lives of New Mexican working people?
Thank you. Joe, we'll begin with you.
So I think the minimum wage is an important debate, and I want to point to what we did in Las Cruces, because I think Las Cruces did it right. There was a very long effort to work with the business community and bring the business community together with the local community to set a good minimum wage. And there was opposition. It took some struggle. It took some fight. But we have some of the local elected officials here. And importantly, in the end, you got buy-in. Because when you don't have buy-in to something like the minimum wage, at least a dialogue and an effort and opportunity for people to participate, then you have what we see with this Washington, D.C. administration. We have people trying to undo the Obamacare. We can't in New Mexico be enacting minimum wage with one governor and then eliminating it with the next when a Republican, God forbid, gets elected ever again. So the bottom line is that I have a record, and you will be able to follow my record in New Mexico for consistently voting for higher minimum wage in New Mexico. I'm proud to know that, and you to know that as a business owner with my brother here today, we are always consistently paying much higher than minimum wages. We're proud to do so. We will always do so. We want to have the top employees working for us. And when you have business recognizing the value of that, then you don't have the opposition and pushback that you do in some places with minimum wage increases.
Thank you. Peter?
So you already heard me talk in detail about my support of a minimum of $15 an hour living wage. I'd like to see the Department of Workforce Solutions figure out what it actually costs to live in New Mexico, because in Albuquerque, $15 an hour would not get you enough money for housing for a family of four at the end of the month. Okay, so we need to adjust that. Now, of course, we have to move slowly so that the businesses can catch up to this, but it's going to put more money in circulation, and that's going to change the economy around. And you need to look at this from the personal level, because right now, the savings is so weak in our country and in our state that for most people, if you blow a tire, it's a crisis. How are you going to get to work? You're not going to have the resources or the money to do that. And so we really need to look at this from a human point of view. And most of the candidates for governor are playing games of thrones, you know, with their policy and their big donations, and the rest of us are suffering here, starving. And so we need to put people first, and living wages of at least $15 an hour is very important, but we have to move no more than $1 or $1.25 per hour per year so we don't hurt the businesses that exist.
Thank you. Jeff.
Thank you, Charmaine, for that question. I actually have a track record of giving people living wages. I ran media companies from around the world, and when I took over New Mexico, a third of our staff was making minimum wage. And New Mexico had the highest turnover of employees in our company. And 2 years later, our CEO said, Jeff, what are you doing different in New Mexico? You've now become the company in the division with the least amount of turnover. And I told him, my CEO, my boss, said, guess what? When I got here, we were paying $7.50 an hour. Not one person after 2 years was making under $12 an hour. When you pay people a living wage, productivity goes up. So we support a living wage. We support opportunities for New Mexicans, and we actually agree with Peter that we'd have to scale it up, but we think we can take it to $15 an hour. You'd have to scale it up, and you'd have to scale it up with small business, because $15 an hour might work in Albuquerque, but it wouldn't work in Chama. So we'd have to work with that, and we have a plan for that. But yes, we would approve that.
Thank you. Our next question.
Hi, my name is Mark Filosa. I live here in Tier C. I'm going to talk about a group of people who have absolutely no lobby to talk for them, and it might surprise you to know that it is about indigent people who are either rightly or wrongly charged with crimes. I always thought that Democrats were supposed to be for such folks. Our public defender system in this state is terribly underfunded. Public defenders carry felony loads far beyond the suggested American Bar Association standards. My question is, can you assure me that you realize the importance of the Public Defender's Department, the constitutionality of it, and assure me, or assure us, that it's adequately funded? And just one quick point. There was a trial in this town the last few days where a person was terribly overcharged with a crime, and the jury, the person was represented by the public defender, the jury reached a verdict that was a far lesser crime that was probably more appropriate. I'm proud to note that the foreman of the jury, I note, is here in this group today. But that's my question about the public defender. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, we'll begin with you.
Thank you. So we got to look at the big picture here. A few years ago, there was a big tax break passed for corporations, okay? Passed by a Democratic-controlled legislature, signed by a Republican governor. Then the following year, we saw the big oil dip. And then all of a sudden, everybody played the poverty card. Oh, we just can't afford to do what's right, so we just let people fight over it. So as long as we keep that mentality, we're never going to have enough money for the public defenders. Now, New Mexico leads the nation per capita and people incarcerated. And it's not people in jail who are convicted that are causing that problem. Most of them are sitting in county jails because they can't afford bail. This is sinful, and the New Mexico Constitution prohibits this, and that nobody can speak up for these people to get them out where they need to be to actually follow our Constitution. And so I definitely support the Public Defender's Office and getting the funding you need, but you got to look at the big picture. As long as you elect a mainstream politician, they're going to play the poverty card on you and then say, oh yeah, I support this, but then in the end say, no, there's no money for it.
Okay, Jeff.
Mark, we agree. Our DA's offices, our judge, our courts are underfunded tremendously. In fact, they just underfunded Albuquerque, was one of the top cities with crime. But here's the big picture, and here's the problem. We have lost over $600 million in tax revenue annually. Why? Because we've lost jobs. We have the highest unemployment. We've seen no opportunities for our kids. So what do? They drop out of school. We have a 37% dropout rate, almost 46% in other areas. So we're proposing is we take $200 million. We spend $200 million in incarcerating nonviolent criminals that are actually drug addictions or behavioral health issues. So our proposal is let's decriminalize the nonviolent criminals. Let's move the $200 million into long-term rehab and long-term care and also training programs for opportunities for those kids. And then your courts free up to deal with the violent criminals. But the minor criminals today, they're breaking in because they're drug addicts. They're breaking in because our pharmacy companies have got them hooked on opiates. That's our biggest problem. And then we incarcerate them. So that's what our plan is as when I'm your governor.
All right, Joe.
So Mark, I want to answer your question, which is not what you've been getting answers to. But before that, let me just tell you that I agree with Jeff on decriminalization, and frankly, I'm the guy who's actually done it. I've passed the decriminalization bill in the Senate twice now, the first year by 1 vote, the second year by 14. I'm the guy in the Senate they give the hard bills to, and when they can't pass decriminalization of marijuana, they give it to me, and I got it done. Now we got to get it through the other chamber. To Mark's point is this: the fact of the matter is one of the best things we did was to get the public defenders out of the executive branch. The public defender used to be under the governor. And frankly, this governor, a former DA, wasn't too friendly to public defenders' offices. And candidly, governors before that were not as well either. I told you tonight, one of the most important qualities in the next governor is courage. And governors don't have courage when it comes to public defenders because they're worried they're going to put the wrong guy in the street. You all remember Willie Horton. Governors don't want to put money into public defenders, but we took that branch out of the governor's purview. We put it into an independent commission. I know, Mark, you're part of it. We need to make sure that they are funded on equal par with the district attorneys. District attorneys get better favor with this administration, as you might suspect, with the district attorney. And frankly, the law and order usually gets funded better. It's not fair to the public defenders. They have to be on equal par with the prosecutors.
Okay, thank you.
And I voted for that, Mark, by the way, too.
I appreciate all the enthusiasm of our audience, and we do have still a couple of people in line, and there may be more that get up. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause till the end of the program tonight so that we can get to as many questions as possible. The last forum, we had people still standing, and they didn't get to ask questions. So, Diana?
My name is Diana Tittle, and I live here in TRC, and my question is, do you think that a 100% renewable energy future for New Mexico is a realistic goal in a foreseeable time frame? And if yes, what are significant concrete steps that you would take towards achieving that goal?
Okay, let's begin with Jeff.
Dana, thank you so much for the question. Yes, I do think it's possible. And in fact, we have a plan to invest $1 billion into renewable energies. And yes, we're going to bring back the credits so we can get renewable energies for your house, renewable energies for this building. But as governor, we're going to invest $1 billion, and not of your state money. There's literally $1 trillion in the world that's looking for long-term debt financing of renewable energies. Now, we probably could have done it 10 years ago, but in today's market, you can generate renewable energies at about 4 cents a kilowatt. I got to be frank and honest with you. I have no idea what a kilowatt means. But guess what we can do? We can sell it to California, to other states, at 11 to 18 cents and make 60 to 80% money on our returns. Now, you're going to hear from this campaign. It's about investing. It's about big ideas. It's about change. It's about doing things differently. And that's what we have to do. We have to start looking. We live in a state that's ranked second in renewable energies, but we're ranked 48th in production. Folks, it's time we start looking at different avenues and different opportunities, and that's what I'll do as your governor.
Joe?
I told you earlier tonight, I'm the chairman of the Conservation Committee. We're in charge of renewable energy, solar, wind, and so forth. It is my job to know what a kilowatt hour is, and frankly, to know what it costs to generate and how to get it from where it can be produced, stored, saved, batteries, and get it to where it needs to be. That's my job. Now, the fact of the matter is, this last Saturday, I hope you'll watch on the web stream archives for the Senate. I presided over a 3.5-hour hearing on the most important piece of legislation this session. It's in my committee. I'm holding on to it. It's Senate Bill 47. You all may have heard about it. This is the PNM bill. This is the bill that proposes to shut down the coal plants in the San Juan County region and convert that to renewable energy. That bill proposes to get to 50% renewable portfolio by the year 2030. That would take New Mexico from near the bottom of the states in the country to near the top. But there are trade-offs, and that's why that bill is still being held in the committee. There are conservation groups at the table, Sierra Club, conservation voters. I'm working to negotiate on that. I support the idea of getting to 100%, but again, I told you earlier tonight, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear all the time. I'm not going to tell you the quick fixes. I'm going to tell you where we're at. And where we're at right now is the realistic possibility of getting to 50% by 2030, and we may get that done by the end of this session, but I'm in charge of that, and I'm going to try and make it happen.
Peter.
Thank you. So here's where we get this political disconnect. All the candidates are talking like they support 100% renewable energy. I'm the only one who signed the New Energy Economy Pledge for 100% renewable energy. So there's this disconnect that's going on. We sit there and see, like, for instance, Congresswoman Lujan Grisham's platform says specifically 50% by 2030. Senator Cervantes said the same thing right here. Do you know how much foot dragging that is? California's already at 80% today. All right, and they're saying, oh, but we got to move slow. And they don't talk about how much money they take. Do you know who the 5th largest single donor to Congresswoman Lujan Grisham has been during her career in Congress? PNM. Now, let's say we use that state bank, we give them the money to put solar panels on every single school in the state. They pay us back at their current cost of their electricity bill. We get our money back in 5 to 7 years with interest, and then for the next 15 years, every single school has the equivalent of $100 to $200 extra per student per year because they're not paying for power. Concrete things, not foot dragging.
Time. Our next question.
My name is Joyce Westover. I live in Alto in Lincoln County. About 10 years ago, our grandniece took a semester abroad in Estonia. She was able to reassure her nervous father by sending an email as she traveled from the airport to the university where she was going. The bus was internet enabled. In that context, my question has to do with high-speed internet in New Mexico for rural areas, fiber optics, et cetera. How can we get this done? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we begin with Joe.
With Joe? Jeff.
No, I went first last time, didn't
All
I?
right, I'm happy to go first. And I know this is not a debate tonight, but we need to be able to have that kind of a dialogue. California is at 80% renewable only if you count nuclear energy, right? And so the bottom line is those statistics are not always reliable. But to the question really here, I appreciate the fact that you're talking about your daughter getting in touch with you. Our daughter is a little more problematic, our traveler. She went to Cuba for a month to work on a collective farm down there and had no internet for a month. It's Cuba, right? So we had no idea where she was at, and we couldn't talk to her for a month, and that's hard for parents. Look, the fact of the matter is those of us in the legislature have been fighting to bring broadband around the state because we know that's how people can work at home. That's the future. I have a radiologist who lives down the street from me. He wants to work from home. He can't do his work, and he's losing work because he can't get films transmitted to him from home and back and forth. Broadband is the future, and that's why this last session we passed legislation to do that. The governor vetoed it, but because she didn't have experience, because she didn't know what she was doing, because she was proud of being an outsider, she vetoed and got it wrong. And the fact of the matter is that I and other senators sued her in court to show that her vetoes are wrong. We've won in court. It's now in the Supreme Court. We're going to win again. That bill is already law, as far as I'm concerned, and the governor's going to get overturned by the Supreme Court. We prevailed because we know what we're doing.
Okay, Peter.
Thank you. So I just happened to bring a fact sheet with me with sources that you can look all this stuff up. So when people say, oh no, check the sources. Please, reporters, take one when you leave. Now, when it comes to broadband, we treat it like it's another a commodity that we need to privatize. And that's why we have some of the slowest internet in the world, and particularly here in New Mexico. The bill that Senator Cervantes was talking about was a very good bill, except for the fact that it never put any limits on the prices you can be charged for that broadband. So yes, we need it, but yes, we don't want to just sell the baby while we're trying to get the bathwater filled up. We need to start looking at broadband like it's a public utility. We need to start funding it from the state. This is why I told you we got to get off the teat of oil and gas and start funding our own things with the state bank. We can start to fund those local community services, and then we can make a difference. So yes, we totally need broadband, and no, do not sell us out. We were already getting hosed with net neutrality. It's going to get worse if we go that route.
Jeff.
It's about collaboration. We literally, in the last 8 years, have passed almost, we've passed on almost $400 million of federal grants that could have gone to broadband. So there's no excuse for 50% of our state not having this. And then we sit on billions of dollars, $23 billion in permanent funds that we invest outside the state. And as Joseph said earlier, we almost sit on almost $3 billion of capital outlay in our banks for almost 6 years. So we're talking about investing back into New Mexico. And when we do that, guess what, folks? 50% of the jobs today for 30 and under are called telecommuting jobs. That means you work from your house, and you can work for a company in Colorado, you can work for a company in Texas, you can work for a company in California. Those average jobs pay $80,000 to $85,000 a year. Half of our kids can't have those jobs because we don't invest into infrastructure. Do you think Colorado has these issues? It's about investing into ourselves. It's about collaborating with our pueblos and our tribes, our communities, and our state and federal governments. There is plenty of capital to do it, and there's no reason we should be 50th.
Okay, our next question.
Barbara Perlman, Hillsborough and Sierra County. Coming here tonight, driving from Hillsborough to Tier C, we were stopped by Border Patrol on Highway 152 and asked if we were citizens. I've lived here for over 26 years and have never, until the Trump era, seen Border Patrol on Highway 152. I would like to know, as governor, what kind of sane stand will you take for decent, equal immigration policy for this state?
Okay, Peter.
Thank you. My dad stowed away from Italy to come into this country. He married my mom, who was a legal Italian immigrant, waited for her to get citizenship, and then went to Cuba so he could enter the country legally. My older brothers and sisters had one illegal parent and one legal parent. So I was the generation before this one that suffered that fate. I grew up being called a wop and a dago. So I understand that this is just racism, the big hate, keep us fighting amongst each other so we don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain who's robbing us blind. When I am governor, the very first thing I do, the moment I am sworn in, before I give any speeches, before I say any thank yous, will be to sign an executive order declaring New Mexico a sanctuary state. Our state should not be participating in this whole thing of hating our neighbors because of our skin color. That is just totally wrong. So I cannot be any more clear about this. I'm not one person suffering it now, but I grew up in a family that was exposed to that kind of horrible treatment.
Thank you. Jeff.
Last time I looked, our state was called New Mexico. It's part of our culture. It's part of our heritage, and yes, it's part of our economy. And by the way, there's someone that's not here tonight that had an opportunity to vote on a bill to give 1.8 million DACA kids citizenship. Folks, it's about protecting and creating opportunities for all New Mexicans. And that's what we're going to do. And it's about creating opportunities and fighting. And this bigotry that's going on in our country, it's not who we are. It's not New Mexico. It's not how I grew up. So as your governor, we will fight and protect, and yes, I will push our federal leadership. I am tired of using undocumented and DACA kids as political pawns. And that's what our leaders are doing. We have to fix it, and we have to solve it now. It's that simple.
I'll tell you one of the things I would want to talk to you tonight about courage. I hope that if you didn't follow this story today, you'll go home and look up this story. You know, yesterday the Albuquerque Journal ran an editorial cartoon. Racist, bigoted, xenophobic, horrible. Now, Jeff told me before today that he was having lunch with the editor of the paper the other day, and I took a different approach this morning. I called the editor of the paper and I demanded an apology. I spent 15 minutes on the phone with the editor of the Albuquerque Journal demanding an apology for that cartoon, and then I got on the floor of the Senate today with my colleagues and denounced it and demanded that apology. Now, we got a tepid apology from the Journal a little bit later in the day. But this takes courage because you all know the story. You don't fight battles with people who buy ink by the barrel. But I did so this morning. I took on the Albuquerque Journal on the floor. I took on the Albuquerque Journal on my phone today because it was wrong. That's courage in this state. The fact of the matter is I represent the committee of Sunland Park in my Senate district. It's across the border from Mexico. Mexico is our constitution, our heritage, our culture, and our economy depends on a good relationship. The next governor needs to be a champion at the national level, not like this governor who hides from the issues, not maybe even like the congresswoman who avoids these issues. I'm not going to sneak into the White House. I'm going to be invited and demand a place at the table when it comes to immigration issues and show the national the national government, the president himself, New Mexico demands to have our immigration policies and our culture recognized and respected here as a border state.
Thank you. We have one final audience question of the night, and then I have a final question.
My name's Kim Audette. I'm from Truth or Consequences, Sierra County. My issue has to do with pork causing poverty. And I'm bringing this up because I'm hearing all of you talk about these big ideas that are going to bring in lots of jobs. We got lots of pork in the last 10 years, and it has increased our poverty rate 10%. This is according to the UNM BBER study that was done. Our working adults are all in poverty wage due to tourism. So we have the, I have the perspective that tourism is a poverty wage industry. And I know it's great and everything looks pretty, but it doesn't work for improving lifestyles or quality of life. The second thing I wanted to bring up is pork but not pork. Don't do this as a pork project. You saw what happened when Albuquerque bought Chinese buses. Okay, backlogs. That is a bus factory problem all over the world. What we need are electric bus factories here in New Mexico. And we can do this. We've had factories before. So I'm wondering what sort of approach you would take to not doing it in a pork manner. Thank you.
Okay, let's begin with Jeff on this.
You know, we do things the same way over and over and over every year. We elect the same leaders. And then we sit on capital outlay and don't put it into the communities. Then we take your tax revenue from your communities and your states and take it up to the general fund. We don't know where it goes. And then we sit on literally about $26 billion all in, and it sits around on average for 6 years, and it's invested outside our state. And the reason we have people, 25% live in poverty, and 52% of New Mexicans live on some type of government assistance because we haven't created jobs, we haven't created opportunities. And we need to start investing into jobs, into job creation. I mean, just a little example. Film and television, 16,000 jobs. The average trade skilled worker makes about $18 an hour. If we train New Mexico kids why we want to start a film school, the average wage in film and television for the same job is about $38 an hour. So it's about creating economic-based jobs that pay higher wages. We have the opportunities. And by the way, we start these companies every year here, and they leave to other states because we don't invest into infrastructure. We don't invest in training our kids and creating opportunities.
I'm sorry.
And that's what we'll do.
Time. Joe?
So the question was about pork, and it's a great question. It's something I've been fighting for years. Jeff, earlier you misstated what I said. I didn't say it's $3 billion. It's actually $1 billion, not $3, that is sitting in already expended funds and available to go to work tomorrow as part of the capital outlay reform. I've introduced legislation to try and fight that. And just understand what happens. Historically, the House takes a third of the available funding, the Senate takes a third of the available funding, and the governor takes a third of the available funding. And guess what happens? Nothing ever gets done because there's not enough money to do any one project, and the money does sit around for years. And I've been trying to fight that, and I understand how to do so, and you've got my legislation online to check out how I would do so. But what it takes, frankly, is it's going to take cooperation of the legislature and the governor. And that's what I bring uniquely to this position as a candidate. I've worked with my colleagues in the House and the Senate. I've worked with them, and I know what it's going to take to bring them along to do so in an efficient way. And so it's called pork. There's been a lot of numbers thrown around here tonight. There's not $26 billion sitting around. Legislators are
Add it up, Joe.
The legislators are not nearly as foolish as candidates in this race would like for us all to believe. You have some exceptional people up there. They're bright, they're hardworking. I'm proud to serve alongside them. They need a partner and a leader in the governor's office, and we can get things done. And we're not going to do it by bashing the legislature or suggesting they don't know what they're doing up there.
Okay, Peter.
Thank you. So I think I've made it as clear as I can make. I don't take corporate money, so I don't owe favors. I think I've made it very clear that I support living wages, so it's not this industry or that industry, it's all industries we need to raise the wages on. So what I'm going to talk about is single-payer health care, because nobody's brought that up in a question. I'm the only candidate in this race supporting the New Mexico Health Security Campaign. And in the last debate, I pointed out that Congressman Lujan Grisham is not a co-sponsor of House Bill 676, Medicare for All, which 120 other Democrats around the country support. And she whispered to me, she said, "You don't understand how Medicare works." And there's a lot I don't understand. I don't understand why kamikaze pilots wear helmets. I don't understand why every developed country in the world has single-payer universal health care except us. I don't understand why we pay twice as much for our health care and get half the outcomes. And I do understand that corporations pocket 14% of our premiums instead of turning it into health care. I'm going to change that, and I'm the only candidate pledging to do that.
Thank you, Peter. We'll get to one more audience question. She's standing there, so quickly a question, please.
Okay, as you know, excuse me, New Mexico has an opium epidemic. What, if anything, will you do to assist state and local law enforcement agencies to battle this epidemic? More specifically, punish or rehabilitate individuals who traffic, distribute, sell, or transfer, and those who want to poison our communities and children.
Okay, thank you very much. Joe, we'll begin with you on this.
So the last question I'd like to start with, which is, what do you do to punish the people? And the fact of the matter is, the people that are doing this are the big corporations who manufacture these drugs and push them on people and encourage doctors to use them. And so I encourage the state, through the Attorney General's office and through law enforcement and the federal government, to be prosecuting the people who abuse this and know they're doing so at the corporate level. And that's where we start with the punishment. In terms of punishing the people that have addictions, I don't think that's effective. And as I told you earlier, I'm the guy who decriminalized marijuana in the Senate, and I believe that the way to deal with our drug problem is not by prosecuting people and putting them in jail. I'm an attorney with Mark and others, and I've gone to the judges and I've asked them, what do we need to do to get our crime under control? And they say, Joe, we can't keep spending all of our time and energy and resources on small possession of personal use drugs. And I agree with that. That's why I've been fighting for decriminalization of marijuana. And frankly, we're not going to do it by putting people in jail who have opium and opioid abuse addictions. We need to provide that treatment in our communities. You need to be able to get that in this community. You shouldn't have to go to Las Cruces or Albuquerque to try and get that treatment. It's not going to work otherwise. And so we need to bring those resources. And ultimately, it comes down to this. We're not paying for the government that we deserve in this state of New Mexico. The next governor is going to have to make hard and courageous decisions to pay for the services that we need.
Peter.
Thank you. So I've spent 20 years doing youth alcohol and tobacco prevention. I have a track record of fighting big industries, like when we went to smoke-free bars and restaurants, like when I've been trying to raise alcohol taxes. Compare this to some of the other candidates. Congresswoman Lujan Grisham was the Secretary of Health and Human Services in 2004. According to New Mexico epidemiology, in 2005 and 2006, opioid prescription addiction deaths increased by 40%. Now, I've got the track record fighting this stuff. Also, look at Senate Bill 524, which according to 60 Minutes, derailed the FDA's ability to go after those big drug companies. And of course, Congresswoman Lujan Grisham voted for that bill and has also received $66,700 from pharmaceutical industries during her career in Congress. You're going to have to make some hard choices about people who are just talking about this and people who are really serious about this, going after those corporations. And of course, legal cannabis, 25% reduction in opioid deaths right there.
Jeff.
We talked about it earlier. New Mexico is one of the worst states with opiate addiction and overdoses. And then we've cut pathways, we've cut opportunities for our children in high schools and middle schools, and then they drop out and then they become drug addicts. And you're right, Peter. Congresswoman Grisham basically voted for and passed a bill for the DEA that took away the power to break this down. And you saw opiate explosion in the state of New Mexico. Now, I literally, at the last, she said that opiate addiction has literally gone down because now we're ranked 7th instead of 2nd. Overdoses and addiction has not gone down. The other states have gotten worse. So we talked about it earlier. It's time we stop incarcerating these folks and spend $200 million, and it's time we move that money over to rehab and training programs. Our state long-term rehab 2 months. Our experts tell us it needs 2 years. And as your governor, that's what we're going to fight for, because you think you have it bad here, go to Espanola, go to Taos, go to the Valley. 30 to 40% of their high school kids are ODing almost annually. Folks, it's time we start looking at big ideas, big directions, and start investing back into ourselves. We have too many resources, too much money investing outside so we can gain them to live off a little bit of the interest.
Okay, that's time, and but you're going to get to talk some more because we've made it to our closing statements now, and each candidate is going to get 2 minutes to speak. The candidates are going to be in an order according to a drawing that was conducted backstage. And Jeff, you are first.
I know, I mean, whether it's Apodaca or I draw number 1 all the time. And as Peter said, it looks like you're drawing number 1, and hopefully that's the way the election goes. So, look, tonight what you're going to hear from my opponents is how they've worked at city government, how they've been a cabinet position, how they have all this experience, and how hard it is. You know what's hard? 25% poverty. You know what's hard? Is 4,000 kids in Albuquerque are homeless going to public schools. You know what's harder to sit with? Folks, we have $23 billion from oil and gas and from our mining that has been sitting around for 50 years being invested, and we live off the interest. And I'm not saying we're going to raid, I'm not saying we're going to take anything, but guess what we're going to do? And you're going to hear it over and over from us. We're going to take 5% of your money. It is not the legislator money. It's not John Arthur Smith's money. It's your money. We're not going to raid it. We're not going to spend it. We're not going to take it out, and we don't need to change the Constitution. Guess what we need to do? We need leadership and new ideas and new directions by investing just 5% of that money back into low-debt finance opportunities and loans for New Mexico businesses, to New Mexico opportunities, to renewable energies, to cannabis, to hemp, to technology. We need to invest into our universities. Look, once again, Arizona State University in the last 10 years now has 70,000 students. And now Apple, Facebook, Google, Intel from Albuquerque are all moving there. So folks, until we invest into ourselves, until we invest into healthcare, until we get 300 more doctors in our state, 3,200 more nurses, and until we start creating pathways for our children and opportunities for our children, I'm tired of listening to my opponents talking about what we can't do. It's time we start talking about what we can do. What we can do, we can change New Mexico. We can invest in New Mexico. We can invest into our kids, and we can turn New Mexico around. So I ask you for your support. Go to our website. Check out our education plan. We have the capital. We have the money. It's time we start investing to ourselves and help our kids and our youth to stay here to create more opportunities. Thank you for tonight. I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. This is a great turnout. I'll stick around for more questions. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, you drew number 2.
Thank you. So clearly I'm the progressive candidate in this race. And everybody comes up to me and says, Pete, I love your issues, but you can't win. And I'm like, really now? Tuesday we did the filing. I turned in twice the number of petitions needed, more than twice as much. 90% collected by volunteers, not paid petitioners like the other candidates. There's a lot of people power out there. Now, if you look at the 2017 off-year elections, every single progressive who made it through the primary won. Every single one, the transgender candidate, the Democratic Socialist candidates, the Muslim candidates, the minority candidates, they all won. But when the milquetoast, middle-of-the-road corporate Democrat made it through the primary, it was a toss-up. Sometimes they won barely, like in Alabama. Sometimes they lost barely, like in Georgia. We're going up against Steve Pierce. Koch brothers said they're going to have at least $400 million in dark money supporting candidates like him. Do you really want to have a toss-up, a coin toss going against the Republican candidate? You don't fight fire with fire. You use a hose and put it out. And that's what people power is all about. Look at the election in Albuquerque last year. The mayor won overwhelmingly. He was endorsed by Our Revolution, Bernie Sanders' organization. I've been endorsed by Our Revolution Albuquerque. You look at the Las Cruces City Council races. The Democrats swept, but it wasn't just the Democrats. They were all progressive Democrats. So now you got a choice. Do you want to win next year? Send the progressive through. You want to have a toss-up? You got 3 other choices to pick from, okay? Peter DeBenedittis, Peter D4Gov, number 4, PeterD4Gov.com. It's a people-powered race. If your finger wanders over to that donate button, don't stop it. Stay blessed.
Okay. And Joe, you take us home. Take us to the greeting time.
Well, thank you, Fred. So the next governor will inherit an unprecedented mess from a state that's been left adrift by this administration for 8 years. And the question is, do you want to have somebody who goes in there who knows the job, knows how we got there, who has experience creating a budget and passing a budget, or do you want to have people coming in to learn the job from the first day? You in this community know very well that you need a governor who can go to work the very first day and begin to turn around and help you in this community. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance tonight to talk about spaceport. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk about water because those issues are so important in this community, but I know those issues. I know those issues intimately. There's nobody in the legislature who knows those issues better than I do, candidly. Now, the fact of the matter is, as I told you, there were going to be 3 things I wanted to talk to you tonight about, and the first one was there are no quick fixes. These guys work hard. We were in grants last night. I went back and I chaired a committee this morning in the legislature. I did my business. I did my job on the Senate floor, and then I made it here tonight with Jennifer. And the fact of the matter is this. I tell you, it's about hard work. You got to have hard work, and there are no quick fixes. Peter, I have a lot of respect for you. We're never going to create a state bank. There's only one in the entire country. It was created 100 years ago, and you don't have 49 other states knocking down the doors to do one. You got to ask yourselves, why is that true? Jeff, you've got the billions of dollars that you say need to be invested, and the fact of the matter is that's the governor's principal job is to invest that money, and the governor does so. We have a state investment council. They invest that money, and frankly, we use the return on that investment to fund our public schools. We got our school board members here. How do you think we pay for our schools? Our budget is about 2/3 public education. We do that from those investments and return on investments, and you can't legally take those funds to go put them into infrastructure, the things that Mr. Apodaca talks about, because the Constitution doesn't allow it. And so you can say you're tired about not things that you can do, but frankly, those of us in the legislature know what can be done and not done. And so I tell you, experience matters. We need a governor who knows where we got to where we're at and who can do it on the very first day. And I tell you, the last thing I want to talk to you about is courage. The fact is, Peter's right about one thing. We're not going to fight fire with fire. Steve Pierce, we know very well in this part of the state, he's going to have endless amounts of money. We're not going to win this by raising money. I won't have the most money in this race. Susana Martinez raised record sums of money, and it didn't lead to anything. Leadership and money don't go hand in hand. We don't need more Washington in New Mexico. We don't need more Washington money in New Mexico. We need a New Mexican from southern New Mexico who values hard work, who has the best experience of all the candidates, and frankly has the courage and is not looking to climb the political ladder in this position. I'm Joe Cervantes. I hope you'll support me for governor. I'm ready to go to work for you, and we can get things done with my partners in the legislature from the very first day in office.
What a night. Thank you so much for coming to this event tonight.